It didn't feel like a beginning, not the kind people imagine when something extraordinary is about to happen. There was no sudden silence, no dramatic shift in the sky, no sign that the world itself had changed. Everything moved forward exactly as it always had. And yet beneath the surface of ordinary life, something unseen was already unfolding. Most people wouldn't notice it at first. Not because it wasn't there, but because they had learned to live without paying attention to anything that didn't demand their focus. Their days were filled with noise, messages, conversations, responsibilities, each one pulling them further away from the quiet places where something deeper could be felt. And so, even as it happened, it remained hidden, not by force, but by distraction. He was there not as a figure meant to be recognized instantly, not surrounded by anything that would reveal him to the world. He moved through the same spaces, walked the same streets, stood in the same light as everyone else, and still there was something different, something that didn't belong to the rhythm of this world, yet somehow fit perfectly within it. Those who passed by him might not stop. They might not turn their heads or question what they felt, but something inside them would pause, just for a moment. A feeling that didn't come from logic, something that couldn't be explained or easily forgotten. It would linger quietly, like a thought that returns when everything else fades. Some would feel it in the middle of chaos, and in a moment where everything felt too heavy, too overwhelming. And then suddenly, without reason, a calm would appear. Not enough to remove the problem, but enough to change how it was carried. Others would feel it in silence when the world around them slowed just enough for something deeper to reach them. And still, they wouldn't understand, because understanding was never the first step. Feeling was. There is something about truth that doesn't always announce itself with certainty. Sometimes it arrives as a whisper, as a presence, as something that doesn't force belief but invites it. And in a world that has grown used to noise, whispers are often ignored. Not because they lack power, but because they require stillness to be heard. But there are always those who listen, not intentionally at first, not with full awareness. But in small, unguarded moments, they begin to notice something that others overlook. A pattern, a presence, a consistency that doesn't belong to chance. And slowly, without even realizing it, they begin to change. Their reactions shift. Their thoughts become quieter. Their hearts softer. Not all at once, not in a way that draws attention, but enough to make them wonder why. And that question is where everything begins. Because once someone starts to question what they feel, they also begin to question what they believe. The things they once ignored become harder to dismiss. The moments they once overlooked become impossible to forget. And suddenly, what once felt distant begins to feel close. Closer than expected, closer than comfortable, closer than anything they've known before, but not everyone welcomes that closeness. For some, it feels like peace. For others, it feels like something they're not ready to face, and because to truly recognize something real means letting go of what is not. And that is where many turn away, not because they didn't feel it, but because they did. And still, he remains, not chasing, not forcing, not revealing himself in ways that remove doubt completely, just present. always near, always patient, always waiting. And somewhere, someone will stop long enough to feel it fully. Not just for a moment, but for real. And when that happens, everything else begins to lose its weight. Not because life becomes easier, but because something greater has been found. Something that doesn't disappear when circumstances change. Something that remains even when everything else fades. And maybe you are closer to that moment than you think. Maybe it has already started. Maybe that feeling you couldn't explain, that moment you tried to ignore, that quiet sense that something was different, was never random. Because the truth is, it doesn't begin when the world sees him. It begins when you feel him. And the question once again returns, softly but persistently. What if he has been there all along and you are only just now starting to notice?